In the oppressive hush of the motel bathroom, Elena stood frozen, each heartbeat echoing against the peeling tile walls. The air was heavy with steam and secrets, every breath thick with dread. The journal's cryptic words replayed in her mind, their meaning twisting into something darker with each recollection. Outside, the world seemed distant and indifferent, but inside, Elena faced a truth she could neither escape nor deny. The warning lingered, urgent and inescapable, demanding her next move. She stared, heart pounding, as the water's swirling spiral darkened before her eyes. The rusty tinge thickened, blooming into a deeper, unsettling red. Her breath caught in her throat, the chill of the water now replaced by a crawling unease. Each droplet carried a secret, whispering of something hidden within the pipes, a history etched in stains. As the color deepened, she realized this was no ordinary morning ritual. Something had changed, and she wasn't alone. Elena's breath caught as she stared at the impossible sight before her. The water, once innocent and clear, now spun in vivid red ribbons, staining the white porcelain with ghostly streaks. Her heart pounded, desperate for an answer that wouldn't come. She searched her reflection, seeking any sign of injury, but found none. Her skin was flawless, unbroken. Yet the evidence twisted before her, undeniable and haunting, leaving her to wonder what unseen force had turned her world askew. The silence pressed in, broken only by the relentless circling of water and the low, guttural sound from the drain. Her heart hammered as the crimson stain grew bolder, spiraling downward, refusing to clear. The black hair, slick and glistening, vanished inch by inch into the darkness below. Every instinct screamed to step back, but she couldn't look away. With each rotation, the water seemed to draw her in, promising secrets and shadows best left undisturbed. A chill crept up Elena's spine as she stared into the mirror, her breath shallow and uneven. The memory of that fleeting, ghostly face lingered in her mind. Its hollow eyes, its silent scream. She tried to steady herself, but something felt wrong, as if a piece of her had been left behind with that apparition. The bathroom was quiet now, save for the distant drip of water. But the reflection that gazed back at her felt like a stranger. Rain traced delicate paths down the windshield, each droplet distorting the world beyond into rippling fragments of red and shadow. Elena watched the neon barber sign flicker, its glow painting restless shapes across the fog-shrouded street. The silence pressed in, thick and expectant, broken only by the soft patter of rain. Wrapped in the hush and the faint warmth of her car, Elena felt the weight of the night settle, waiting for something just out of sight. She stepped into the lurid glow, a shadow framed by flickering neon. The woman's silhouette was unmistakable, tall, confident, and carrying a satchel slung low at her hip. For a moment, time seemed to hold its breath, the hum of the sign mingling with the pounding in her chest. Every instinct screamed caution, but curiosity tethered her in place. Tonight, behind those dirty windows, something unspoken was about to unfold. A teenage girl in a denim jacket entered the scene, her chestnut braids swinging with purpose as she walked. She paused, eyes flickering to her phone, uncertainty flickering across her face. In a moment of resolve, she reached for the door and gently pushed it open. The bell overhead rang out, its sound clear and piercing against the quiet. Without looking back, she stepped forward, vanishing into the shadowy interior that awaited her beyond the glass. Elena's hands trembled as she gripped the steering wheel, every second stretching into an eternity. Outside, the world seemed suspended, the silence pressing against the car like a heavy blanket. The relentless buzz of the neon sign seeped through the glass, intensifying the ache in her head. She scanned the windows again, searching for any hint of life, but the building remained stubbornly still. Doubt and dread tangled in her chest, each minute sharpening her sense that something was terribly wrong. Elena's heart hammered in her chest, each beat reverberating through the silence of the car. The city outside seemed to hold its breath, streets deserted and shadows thickening in the corners. She stared at the building's dark facade, searching for any sign, any movement, but the doorway remained empty. The neon light flickered again, unnaturally deliberate, as if acknowledging her presence. A chill crept up her spine. Something was watching, and it wanted her to know. She stared at the glowing screen, her heart thudding in her chest. The words seemed to pulse in the dim light, echoing in her thoughts and filling the silent room with a sudden chill. Her fingers hesitated above the phone, torn between swiping it open or tossing it aside. Every shadow felt sharper now, every creak more ominous. Someone out there knew her, someone was watching, and they wanted her to know she was not alone. Each tick of the clock sounded louder in the hush, a metronome counting down the seconds until dawn. Shadows pooled in the corners, stretching across faded wallpaper and threadbare carpet. Elena's breath came slow and shallow, matching the rhythm of her racing thoughts. Every distant car, every creak of the old pipes, seemed magnified by the stillness. She listened, heart pounding, as if the night itself might reveal some secret just beyond the edge of sleep. Night pressed in around her, heavy and silent, as she tried to make sense of the strange sensation. Her heart pounded, echoing in her ears, while the delicate strands of hair seemed to twist and curl with a will of their own. Each subtle movement sent shivers racing down her spine. Fear mingled with disbelief, the boundaries of her reality slipping as she lay trapped between terror and curiosity, uncertain whether she was still dreaming or if something had truly awakened within her. The sensation was impossible to ignore, growing stronger with every heartbeat. Something ancient and alive seemed to stir within her, awakening from a long slumber. The strands tightened, pressing close, as though whispering secrets only she could hear. Fear mingled with fascination, each breath shallow and uncertain. She could feel her own hair becoming something other, something wild and untamed, moving with a will all its own. In that moment, she realized she was no longer fully herself. She sat frozen, heart hammering in her chest, barely daring to breathe. The faint glow from the lamp painted trembling shadows on the walls, but her hair remained motionless, as if whatever force had possessed it was banished by the feeble light. Relief mingled with lingering dread, her mind racing with questions she could not answer. In the quiet that followed, she pressed a shaky hand to her throat, trying to convince herself it had all been a nightmare. Elena's breath came in ragged bursts, her eyes wide with disbelief as the lamp glowed defiantly in the shadowed room. The air felt charged, thick with a presence she couldn't name. That single lock of hair slithered down her skin, and Elena's reflection blinked back at her, a heartbeat behind. Panic clawed at her chest as the impossible unfolded, light clinging to every surface, reality slipping just beyond her desperate grasp. The night had changed, and so had she. Elena listened to the silence, her breath loud in the stillness. Every shadow on the peeling wallpaper seemed to twitch with secrets. She traced the journal's cracked spine, remembering the cryptic entries that had led her here. Fear mingled with determination in her chest. Whatever waited outside this room, whatever truth hid behind those pages, she knew she couldn't run forever. Tonight, she would find answers. Tonight, the silence would break, one way or another. Elena hesitated, her breath catching as she stared at the mysterious card. The silence felt heavier now, pressing in from all sides. She knelt, fingertips trembling, and reached out, half expecting the card to vanish at her touch. It remained, cold and real beneath her hand. With a deep breath, she flipped it over, searching for a clue. The darkness beyond the door seemed to pulse with secrets, waiting for her next move. Elena stared at the card, her fingers trembling as she traced the precise letters. The ink glimmered faintly, as if alive, and the hair on the back sent a chill down her spine. Someone had been close enough to take it, and bold enough to return it in this strange, ritualistic fashion. Midnight loomed in her mind, heavy with questions and warnings. Alone, the word echoed, promising secrets, danger, and a confrontation she could not avoid. Elena's breath caught as she strained to listen, her heart beating in her ears. The silence pressed in, heavy and expectant, broken only by that delicate, chilling sound, snip, snip. Somewhere beyond the door, metal blades met in slow, deliberate rhythm, each closure sending a shiver up her spine. She glanced down at the card, now exposed and vulnerable on the floor, wondering if it held a warning or an invitation she could no longer ignore. She stood motionless, listening to the hush of the house pressing in around her. Every shadow seemed to shift, every sound sharpened by the weight of impending midnight. Her breath came shallow, heart racing as if it, too, sensed the unseen presence lurking just beyond her sight. She wasn't sure when the certainty arrived, only that it was absolute. Whatever waited for her in the dark had been waiting a long time, and it would not wait much longer. Elena stood frozen just inside the threshold, the echo of the bell still ringing in her ears, the sharp clank of the door reverberating through the close, musty air. The shop seemed to exhale around her, a blend of talcum powder, faint cologne, and something older, something that lingered beneath the surface, like the memory of rain on old pavement. She looked back at the door, half expecting to see someone standing there, but the glass was empty, her own reflection warped and blurred by the dust and the pale, flickering light within. She took a tentative step forward, her boots creaking on the worn linoleum tiles. The shop was small, cluttered yet strangely tidy. A row of battered leather chairs lined one wall, their surfaces cracked and faded, traces of long-forgotten conversations lingering in the air above them. On the opposite side, the barber's chair stood alone, its chrome arms gleaming dully in the half-light, a white sheet draped over the seat like a shroud. The mirrors behind the chair were clouded, reflecting indistinct shapes that seemed to shift and shimmer as Elena moved. The only sound was the slow, rhythmic hum of the barbershop pole outside, its red and white stripes spinning endlessly, as if marking time in a place where clocks held no sway. Elena felt the urge to call out, to announce her presence, but something in the hush of the shop held her back. Instead, she let her eyes wander, tracing the outlines of old photographs hung crookedly on the walls. Sepia-toned faces, sharp suits, slicked hair, all staring out with hollow-eyed solemnity. A calendar, yellowed and curling at the edges, hung beside the cash register. The date was years out of date. A faint shuffle broke the silence, a whisper of movement from the back room. Elena's breath caught in her throat. She forced herself to stand tall, to look unafraid, though every instinct screamed for her to turn and bolt. But the door was closed now, and the sound of her own heartbeat seemed to fill the space between her and the unseen figure beyond. The curtain at the rear of the shop trembled, and a hand, a man's hand, pale and sinewy, pulled it aside. The barber emerged slowly, his frame thin and angular, his hair a shock of silver above a gaunt, lined face. He wore a crisp white smock, starched and spotless, though his eyes were shadowed and deep-set, as if he hadn't slept in days. He regarded Elena with a curious, searching gaze, his expression unreadable. "Good evening," he said, his voice low and gravely, yet not unkind. "I wasn't expecting anyone at this hour." Elena swallowed, forcing herself to meet his eyes. I'm sorry, I just needed a place to get out of the cold for a minute." She hesitated, glancing at the empty chairs. Are you still open?" The barber smiled, but the gesture did not quite reach his eyes. "Always open, for those who need a trim." He gestured to the chair, an invitation that felt both genuine and ominous. "Please, have a seat." A wariness prickled along Elena's spine, but curiosity and exhaustion won out. She crossed the worn floor and slid onto the barber's chair, feeling its weight and history settle beneath her. The barber moved with slow, deliberate grace, gathering a comb and scissors from the neatly arranged counter, his motions silent and precise. The mirror before Elena reflected her face, pale, anxious, framed by tangled hair and uncertainty. As the barber's fingers began to work, combing through her hair with surprising gentleness, Elena let her gaze drift. The shop felt suspended in time, untouched by the world outside. The photographs on the walls, the ancient cash register, the humming pole, all relics of another era, preserved like insects in amber. She wondered who had sat in this chair before her, what stories had been told in the hush between snips of the shears. The barber worked in silence, his scissors clicking softly, a rhythm as steady as a heartbeat. Elena found herself relaxing, the tension in her shoulders easing as the old chair cradled her. She closed her eyes for a moment, letting the sound of the scissors and the hum of the pole lull her into a strange, almost dreamlike calm. When she opened her eyes again, the mirror seemed different, warmer, brighter. Her reflection was clearer now, her features softened by the gentle glow of the shop's single lamp. Behind her, the barber's face was reflected too, his eyes focused and intent, his hands deft and sure. The shop felt less foreboding, the air lighter. "Feeling better?" the barber asked, his voice breaking the silence. Elena nodded, surprised to find that she did. She tried to remember why she had felt so uneasy, but the memory slipped away like mist. He finished with a flourish, brushing away stray hairs and draping a fresh towel around her shoulders. "There, all done. You look like yourself again." Elena glanced at her reflection, startled by the transformation. Her hair was neatly trimmed, her face framed with care. She looked, not just tidier, but somehow more herself, as if the barber had restored something she hadn't known was missing. She rose from the chair, reaching instinctively for her wallet. But the barber shook his head. "No charge," he said softly. "Sometimes all a person needs is a place to rest. A bit of kindness." Elena hesitated, then smiled, gratitude welling up inside her. She turned toward the door, pausing to glance back at the barber, who was already tidying his tools, humming a tune she almost recognized. The shop seemed brighter now, the dust on the window glowing gold in the lamplight. As she stepped outside, the cold air bit at her cheeks, but she felt lighter, as if the weight she carried had been trimmed away along with her hair. The barbershop pole still spun, slow and steady, marking the passage of time in its own quiet way. Elena looked back once, half expecting the shop to have vanished, but it remained. A small oasis of warmth in the chill of the night. She walked away, her steps surer, the memory of the barber's gentle touch lingering like the echo of a lullaby. And as the city closed around her once more, Elena carried with her the knowledge that even in the unlikeliest of places, kindness could find her, waiting behind a dusty window and a softly chiming bell. A hush blanketed the room, broken only by her shallow breaths. She pressed her palm against the cool glass of the mirror, its surface smooth and unyielding. Shadows shifted in the reflection, shapes that didn't quite match the room behind her. The silence grew heavier, pressing in on her from all sides. She stepped backward, heart pounding, every instinct screaming that something was wrong. Yet there was nowhere to run, and the mirror's gaze followed her every move. Elena's breath caught in her throat as the sound echoed through the empty barbershop. The voice, cracked and unfamiliar, seemed to seep from the walls themselves. In the reflection, the chair spun faster, blurring at the edges, though reality remained stubbornly still. The razor on the counter trembled again, its blade catching the light in a sudden, unnatural glint. Elena's heart pounded, each beat louder than the last, as she strained to see what lurked behind her name. The air thickened with the scent of old cologne and dust. Elena's pulse hammered as the unseen figure in the mirror shifted, its outline flickering between reality and reflection. Shadows stretched across the floor, reaching for her feet. The waltz grew louder, echoing off faded wallpaper, each note twisting with unease. With every step she took, the room seemed to contract, drawing her closer to the waiting chair, and to whatever patient presence occupied the darkness behind her name. The room stood silent, yet the chair's leather still radiated warmth, a lingering trace of someone who had only just left. Unease crept along her spine as she turned to the mirror, expecting her own reflection. But the glass was blank, swallowing all light and image. She reached out instinctively, but her hand met only cold surface. In that moment, she understood. Something had shifted, leaving her both present and unseen. Elena stood at the threshold, the weight of the silence pressing in all around her. The gentle thud of her heart was nearly drowned out by the relentless ticking that seemed to echo in this peculiar barbershop, each beat sharp and deliberate, carving its own space in the hush. The black and white tiles beneath her feet glimmered with a cold, uncanny sheen, their patterns twisting under the sallow light overhead. She forced herself deeper into the room, her boots whispering across the floor, the sound almost lost in the cavernous quiet. The barber watched her, his eyes luminous and unblinking. Their color was difficult to name, gray perhaps, or a shade that changed with the flicker of the faulty overhead bulb. Elena felt the gaze like a weight, as if the man could see beneath her skin and into the marrow of her fear. The gloves creaked again as the barber flexed his fingers, the sound tiny but sharp, as if the leather were alive and stretching to accommodate something it was never meant to hold. She tried to steady her breathing, to focus on something mundane, the neat rows of combs and scissors, the glint of the straight razor on the tray, the careful orderliness of the shop's shelves. Everything was in its place, too precise, as though dust and disorder were forbidden here. But the sense of wrongness remained, hovering just beyond the edge of sight, coiling in the corners and rippling in the mirror. Elena's gaze drifted to the glass once more, compelled by a terrible fascination. The reflection captured every detail: her own wary posture, the barber's impeccable smock, the razor's cold gleam. And yet, the man's image was subtly, impossibly warped. His face in the mirror sagged at the edges, as if gravity tugged at him more insistently there. When he smiled, his lips peeled back just a little too far, revealing teeth that seemed to multiply, crowding together in a rictus that was almost a grin, almost a threat. She tried to recall how she had come to be here, but the memory was slippery, lost in a fog of restless sleep and half-remembered dreams. She remembered the invitation, though, slipped beneath her door, the card heavy and embossed with her name. She remembered the strange compulsion to visit this place, as if something inside her had shifted and pointed her here, to this moment. The barber's voice, when it came, was softer now, almost gentle, the rasp subdued to a whisper. "Change can be frightening, Miss Elena," he said, "but it is also necessary. You are not the first to stand where you are now, and you will not be the last." He gestured to the chair again, the motion smooth and patient. "Please, sit. You have nothing to fear from me." The clock's ticking drilled into her bones, each second a command, a summons. Her fingers trembled at her sides. She thought of leaving, of turning and running from the shop and its waiting shadows. But her legs felt heavy, rooted to the floor. The chair beckoned, its leather seat stretched and polished by countless clients, or so it seemed. Yet there were no signs of other customers, no stray hairs, no discarded magazines, only the immaculate stillness, as if the shop existed only for her. She swallowed hard, the taste of iron rising in her throat. The scent lingered, antiseptic and talc, yes, but also something older, more primal. Blood, perhaps, the memory of a wound or the shadow of something lost. The barber's gloved hand hovered above the razor, not touching but reverent, as if awaiting permission. Elena's breath came faster now, shallow and uneven. She tried to summon her courage, to remember why she had come. She thought of her life outside, the monotony, the endless gray days, the feeling that she was a ghost drifting through her own existence. Maybe that was why she was here. Maybe, somewhere deep inside, she wanted to be changed, to step out of the shadows of her own making. The barber's eyes never left her, but his smile softened, just a little. "It's only a chair, Miss Elena. Only a razor and a skilled hand. Whatever you carry with you, I can help you lay it down. Whatever you wish to become, I can help you find." The words echoed in her mind, mingling with the ticking clock, drawing her in. She stepped forward, the distance between them narrowing until the edge of the chair pressed against her knees. The leather creaked beneath her touch, cool and yielding, and she felt the weight of countless stories pressed into its seams. She sat, her body stiff, her hands gripping the arms of the chair. The barber moved behind her, silent as a shadow. In the mirror, she saw his hands poised above her head, the razor glinting in the uncertain light. The clock's ticking filled her ears, racing now, a heartbeat out of control. "Close your eyes," the barber murmured, the words a gentle command. "Trust me." Elena hesitated, but then, slowly, she let her eyelids flutter shut. Darkness enfolded her, warm and heavy. She felt the brush of the barber's gloves against her scalp, the careful parting of her hair. The blade whispered through the air, not yet touching, but promising transformation. Time seemed to dissolve, the ticking of the clock faded, replaced by her own breathing, slow and measured. She felt the weight of the past, the shadows of regret and longing begin to lift, as if the barber's hands could unspool the tangled threads of her life and weave them anew. In the darkness, images flickered, memories of laughter and loss, of roads not taken and words left unspoken. She saw herself, not as she was, but as she might become, bold, unafraid, remade by the simple act of trusting a stranger with a razor and a promise. The chair creaked softly as the barber worked, each movement precise and deliberate. Elena felt the last strands of her old self fall away, the burden of expectation and fear stripped clean. When the barber finally spoke, his voice was different, warmer, almost kind. "It's done," he said, and she opened her eyes. In the mirror, the woman who gazed back at her was familiar, yet transformed. The shadows lingered, but they no longer defined her. She was new, and the shop, its silence, its waiting, was merely the place where she had chosen to begin again. Elena rose from the chair, lighter now, and nodded her thanks. The barber smiled, his teeth no longer menacing, but simply human. She stepped out onto the black and white tiles, the sound of her boots resolute, the ticking of the clock fading behind her as she stepped into the world, changed. In the dim hush of the barber shop, time seems to fold in on itself. Shadows settle into the wood-paneled walls, growing deeper in the corners where the light from the pendant bulb cannot reach. Elena's breath is shallow, her heart thrumming against the thick canvas at her throat. The chair beneath her creaks faintly as she tests the leather straps, but they do not give. She is held still, not just by bindings, but by the heavy, watchful quiet that fills the room. The barber moves with unsettling grace, each gesture precise, deliberate. His hands are pale and long-fingered, veins tracing blue lines beneath the skin. The razor glints, impossibly clean, as he lifts it from the steam. He turns it over in his palm, as if appraising the weight of memory itself. The tune he hums is old, its melody curling through the haze of cologne and oil, mingling with the faint metallic tang of the blade. Elena's eyes dart to the mirror, seeking escape in the warped reflection. The glass is old, silvering at the edges, and her image is stretched, elongated. The shadows beneath her eyes deepened. Behind her, the barber looms, his face unreadable, his gaze fixed on hers with unwavering intensity. For a moment, she wonders if the mirror is a window to another place, a place where time has not moved since 1874 when the sign first hung above the door and the floors were new. Outside, the world is silent. The red neon of the open sign bleeds through the fog, flickering against the misted glass. No footsteps echo on the pavement. No laughter drifts in from the street. It's as if the shop exists between moments, suspended in a stillness that feels both ancient and oppressive. Elena senses, deep in her bones, that this is a place where stories end. The barber's hum fades, replaced by the soft hiss of the steaming water as he wipes the razor on a white cloth. He leans close, the scent of aftershave and old leather enveloping her. The cold kiss of steel brushes her skin, not against her scalp, but at the base of her neck, where the cape clings tightly. She flinches, but the blade does not bite. It lingers, as though tasting the air, poised on the threshold of a decision. Her mind races, searching for words, for a plea that might break the spell, but the silence is thick, swallowing her voice before it can form. In the mirror, she sees only the reflection of fear, her own eyes wide, her lips pressed pale. The barber's hands steady as stone. The razor moves with hypnotic slowness, tracing the line of her jaw, the hollow of her throat. Each motion is a ritual, ancient and unspoken. The shop is a gallery of memories. Glass jars line the shelves, filled with combs yellowed by time and shears that glint with the ghost of old haircuts. Photographs, sepia and sun-bleached, peer out from between the jars, their faces blurred by age. Men in stiff collars, boys with slicked hair, all posed in this very chair. Elena wonders how many have sat where she sits now, how many have watched their reflection fade into the gloom as the barber worked his silent magic. The barber's eyes do not blink. He sees her not as a customer, but as a canvas, a vessel for some secret, some purpose that lives in the marrow of the shop. The razor hovers, its edge so close she feels the chill of it in her veins. Her breath comes faster, fogging the mirror, but the barber's calm is unbreakable. A distant clock chimes, muffled by the velvet drapes. The sound is hollow, as if it's coming from beneath the floorboards or behind the walls. Elena counts the strokes, 3, 4, 5, each one a heartbeat in the darkness. The barber's fingers tighten on the razor. The flickering bulb above swings gently, throwing wild shadows across the room. Suddenly, the barber speaks. His voice is quiet, barely more than a whisper, yet it fills the shop with authority. He asks her name, not the name she gave at the door, but the one she keeps hidden, the true name that few have spoken aloud. Elena's lips tremble. She hesitates, but the straps are unyielding, the blade patient. She speaks, and the sound of her voice startles her, thin and uncertain. The barber nods, as if this is what he has been waiting for. He dips the razor again into the steaming water, letting the heat rise between them. He begins to shave, not her hair, but the air around her, slicing through the silence, peeling away layers of fear and memory. Each pass of the blade is careful, reverent, as if he is freeing her from something she cannot see. In the mirror, Elena watches as her reflection shifts. The lines of her face soften, the shadows recede. She feels lighter, as if the weight of years is being pared away, leaving only what is essential. The barber's hands are steady, his movements guided by an ancient rhythm. With each stroke, the shop grows brighter, the sepia tones fading to gold. Outside, the fog begins to lift. The neon sign burns more brightly, casting a warm glow through the window. Somewhere, far off, footsteps approach, the first in what feels like an eternity. Elena senses the world returning, the spell of the shop loosening its grip. The barber unfastens the straps with a flourish. The cape falls away, and Elena rises, unsteady but unafraid. She glances back at the chair, at the cracked mirror, at the barber who stands with his hands folded, a quiet smile on his lips. She steps out into the street, the night air cool and sweet. Behind her, the barbershop hums with the memory of old stories, waiting for the next visitor to sit beneath the flickering bulb and face the secrets reflected in the glass. For Elena, the world is new again. The past has been shaved away, leaving only the promise of what comes next. And in the quiet of the misted street, she walks forward, unburdened, into the waiting dawn. The air thickens as the hiss of the razor slices through the silence, sharper than the scissors ever were. Elena's breath is shallow, her pulse echoing in her ears. The mirror reveals only fragments, her own silhouette, altered and unfinished, and the barber's hands, deliberate and unhurried, preparing for the next act. Each movement is laden with intent, every sound magnified in the hush. Change, irrevocable and uninvited, hovers between them, waiting to carve its final line. Elena's breath hitches, caught somewhere between a gasp and a plea, muffled by the white cloth drawn tight about her neck. The air in the barber shop thickens, heavy with the scent of talcum and steel, and beneath it, something older, coppery, and sweet. The bulb overhead flickers with a restless urgency, shadows leaping and shrinking along the tiled floor, jittering over the faded wallpaper where ancient advertisements curl at the corners. Time itself seems to pulse in the space between those flashes. A staccato heartbeat, too quick, too loud. She tries to move, to wrench herself from the chair, but the leather straps clench her wrists and ankles tight. Her muscles tremble with the effort. The only sign of life in the room is the quiver of the barber's sleeve as he lifts the razor, its metal edge catching the light, glinting like a promise. Elena squeezes her eyes shut and wills herself to remember how she got here. The memory is elusive, sliding through her grasp like water. She remembers the bell above the door, its tired jangle as she stepped inside, seeking nothing more than a trim, a brief escape from the gray press of the city outside. She remembers the barber's smile, polite, practiced, and the comfort of his small talk. But after that, the details dissolve, replaced by a growing sense of dread, as though she'd stepped off the map of her own life and into a place that didn't quite belong to her. She opens her eyes, desperate for confirmation, for proof that she exists. But the mirror's verdict is absolute. The chair sits empty, its upholstery cracked and faded. the scissors gleaming in the barber's hand as he stands behind nothing. Elena's absence is complete, a void so total that it aches. The barber's face is a study in calm, his eyes reflecting only the mirror's blankness. With slow, deliberate movements, he leans closer, and for a moment, Elena feels his breath, cool against her scalp. In the reflection, the razor hovers over empty air, poised for a cut that will never land. She tries again to speak, "Please?" But her voice is swallowed by the room, lost in the thick folds of the cloth and the hush that seems to press in from all sides. The barber's expression does not change. If he hears her, he gives no sign. The mirror ripples again, the surface quivering as if a stone has been dropped into its depths. For an instant, Elena sees another world peering through, a dim and colorless echo of this one. The other barber, or the same but not, moves with the same prack.
Elena.
Cold, metallic light spills through the high window, painting the floor in pale rectangles. Elena sits rigid beneath the barber's heavy cape, the rough wool itching at her collarbones, the fabric pressing down on her shoulders like the weight of 100 hands. Her hair, once thick and dark, now clings in unruly clumps to her scalp, jagged and uneven. The sensation is alien. Each breath of cold air stings the exposed skin, raising goosebumps where the blade has grazed too close. Her body shudders, but the straps across her wrists and ankles hold her still. She tries not to think about them, tries not to remember when they were first tightened. The quiet click of each buckle, the way the barber didn't meet her eyes. There is no comfort in the room. Shelves line the walls, cluttered with old combs, dulled scissors, jars of yellowed tonic. The mirror dominates the far wall, a wide, tarnished expanse that refuses to reflect her image. She remembers her face, pale, drawn, eyes too large in the hollow mask of her skin, but she cannot see it. The glass remains obstinate, empty, as if it has swallowed her whole. She wonders sometimes if this is punishment or simply the cost. The whispers begin again. At first, they are a gentle susurration, like wind through dry grass, barely brushing her consciousness. But they grow, overlapping, urgent, a crowd pressing at the edges of her mind. "Let it go," they murmur, voices weaving into one another, sometimes familiar, sometimes utterly strange. "Let go. Let us out." They don't plead anymore. They demand, a tidal force pounding at the inside of her skull. The pressure builds, swelling behind her eyes, making her vision blur around the edges. It is as if something alive and hungry claws at her bones, desperate for release. Her fingernails dig crescents into her palms, searching for an anchor. Her legs have long since gone numb beneath the cape and straps. She tries to speak, to shape the chaos into words, but nothing comes. Her mouth opens, closes, the syllables heavy, thick, stuck like stones behind her teeth. Even her voice is not her own anymore. The barber moves with the same slow precision as always. He wipes the blade against a cloth, the sound muffled and distant. He hums a tune, one she remembers from the first time, a lullaby with a melody that twists and warps, notes slipping out of key like a music box with a cracked heart. The sound fills the air, winding around the whispers, amplifying their urgency. "Let us out." The mirror, long silent, flickers with movement. Shadows gather behind the barber's reflection, coalescing into shapes: men, women, children. Some have tufts of hair clinging to their heads. Others are bald, their scalps gleaming in the dim light. Their eyes are shadows, deep hollows that seem to drink in the room. They sway in time with the whispers, a silent congregation. One steps forward, its outline shifting, uncertain, until recognition sparks. It is her. A hand rises, palm flat against the inside of the glass. Her hand. The lines, the scars, the shape. She knows it intimately, as if it were a ghostly continuation of her own flesh, The realization settles over her, heavy and absolute. The mirror isn't broken, it's sealed. All this time, it has been a barrier, not a void. Each haircut, each whisper, each strap pulled tight. A trade, a bargain struck in silence. Elena isn't the first, she's just next. The barber's hand trembles as he raises the razor to her crown. For a moment, she glimpses uncertainty in his reflection, the smallest fracture in his mask. The voices crescendo, no longer whispering but screaming, "Now, now, now!" Their need is a living thing, a storm battering at the glass. The pressure in her skull reaches a fever pitch, pain and anticipation twining together until she cannot tell them apart. A crack splits the mirror, sharp and sudden, a jagged lightning bolt from corner to corner. The sound is a shattering, a breaking open, and the air hums with energy. In that instant, Elena breathes in. Truly breathes, as if for the first time. The air rushes into her lungs, cold and sharp, and she feels herself expanding. Filling the space that once held only fear and silence, the whispers fall silent, replaced by a vast, ringing stillness. The figures in the mirror step forward, one by one, their eyes meeting hers with quiet understanding. They are not angry, they are not vengeful, they are free. And for a heartbeat, Elena is part of them, a thread woven into the tapestry of memory and release. She understands finally what the others knew. The mirror is not a prison for the body, but for the soul, a reservoir of sorrow and pain, waiting for the day when the seal would break. Each sacrifice, each shorn head, each whispered plea was another layer, another lock. But locks are made to be opened. Seals are meant to be broken. As the last figure steps through the fractured glass, Elena feels the straps loosen around her wrists. The weight lifts from her shoulders. She stands, unsteady, the cape slipping to the floor in a heap. The barber is gone, his chair empty, the hum of his tune fading like a memory. The room is brighter now, the light softer, more forgiving. Elena touches her scalp, feeling the uneven stubble, the coolness of the air. She looks into the mirror, and for the first time, she sees her own reflection, whole and unbroken. The faces of the others linger at the edges, luminous and watchful, but they are no longer trapped. They are with her, a chorus of voices at rest. She breathes in again, deeper this time, filling her body with life. The door stands open, sunlight spilling across the threshold. Outside, the world waits, unchanged yet utterly new. Elena steps forward, leaving behind the shadows and the whispers, carrying only the memory of what it means to be free. And somewhere far behind her, a mirror shatters, its pieces scattering like stars. Elena's breath catches in her throat, the sound of her own panic now a dull thrum in the space where words and air refuse to pass. The room, once ordinary in its faded barbershop familiarity, has become a pressure chamber, memory and reality fusing into something slick and inescapable. The chair beneath her is no longer just a seat. It is a living thing, a vessel, its leather tightening with the rhythm of her mounting terror. Every attempt to shift, to wrench herself free, is met with a tightening, a constriction that is neither physical nor entirely imagined, but something in between, a binding not of ropes, but of will. The mirror across from her continues its silent betrayal, where she expects to see her own reflection, her own wide eyes, the wild tumble of her hair, the flush of fright blooming across her cheeks. There is only the faceless figure. Smooth skin stretched where features should be, the blank canvas of a person erased. The head is shorn, the neck rigid, the posture resigned and motionless, as if whatever battle had once played out here has long since ended, leaving only surrender in its wake. Elena's mind recoils, desperate to deny the possibility that the mirror knows something she does not. The barber, silent and steady, moves with a grace that is almost ritualistic. The blade, gleaming briefly in the red glow, is handled with reverence, set down among the relics of his trade, jars cloudy with age, combs worn by generations of hands and hair. He does not look at her, does not acknowledge her presence beyond the essential movements of his task. The room reverberates with an old song, the whispers now a chant, threading beneath the floor, through the walls, swirling around her bones. The chant is wordless, yet she feels its intent. Stay seated, stay still, let go. The room is sinking, she thinks, though she cannot tell if it is the world moving or her own sense of self unraveling. The air is thick with the iron scent of old blood and the cloying perfume of hair tonic. But beneath it all is something else, the tang of fear, of lost time, of promises broken and bargains struck in desperation. Each breath is a negotiation between submission and resistance. When the light overhead gutters out, darkness falls like a curtain, and for a moment she is nowhere. Unmoored, floating in a void alive with the sound of her own heart. The darkness is not empty, though. It pulses, slow and deep, in time with her racing pulse. The red glow that seeps up from the floorboards is unnatural, a color that belongs not to fire or blood, but to the inside of a closed eyelid, to the space behind dreams. She looks down, forced by the tilt of her head, to where the carvings encircle the chair's base. The wood is ancient, darkened by age and by something else, something seeped in over years. Circles interlock, symbols spiral out from a central point, and in between them, names. Each one etched with precision. Some faded into near invisibility, others fresh and raw. Her own name stands out, the newest mark, the lines still splintered at the edges. Elena. She cannot remember giving her name, but the room knows it all the same. You belong here now. The words are not spoken aloud, yet they ring in her mind, clear and absolute. The realization settles on her shoulders, heavier than any strap or leather binding. She is not the first. She will not be the last. The chant beneath her feet rises in pitch, the vibrations crawling up the legs of the chair, through her spine, into her skull. The room is alive with memory and hunger, and she is its newest story. Behind her, the wall shudders, a tremor that starts small, then grows, a ripple moving through plaster and brick, as if the building itself is waking from a long sleep. Where the door once stood, a seam splits open, thin and wet, glistening in the red half-light. It is not an invitation, but a warning. The line widens, just enough to suggest the possibility of escape, just enough to remind her that the world outside still exists, distant and inaccessible. Then comes the knock. Once. Sharp, deliberate. The sound echoes, impossibly loud in the hush. Twice. A second, heavier, as if whatever waits beyond is growing impatient. Elena's blood runs cold, her imagination conjuring shapes in the darkness beyond the crack, things that do not belong to any reality she has known. Is it someone coming to help her? Or something called by the chair, by the carvings, by the ancient bargain that keeps the room sealed and the barber silent? She tries again to scream, to call out, but her voice is lost, swallowed by the chant, by the room itself. The effort leaves her dizzy, the edges of her vision blurring with static. The chair tightens its grip, and she feels the warmth of it seep into her skin, a pulse matching her own, sinking with her heartbeat until she cannot tell where her body ends and the chair begins. The mirror ripples once more, and for a moment, the faceless figure turns its head, as if sensing her gaze. The void where eyes should be seems to widen, to draw her in, and Elena feels a tug at the edges of her consciousness, a suggestion that if she gives in, if she lets go, she will become part of the story the room is telling. A story that began long before she entered and will continue long after she is gone. The knock comes again, softer this time, almost reassuring. The seam in the wall pulses, the red light intensifying. The chant swells, filling her ears, her mind, until there is nothing else. Stay seated, stay still, let go. Elena closes her eyes, the darkness behind her lids no different from the darkness of the room. She breathes in, slow and shallow, and the chair breathes with her. In the distance, beyond the wall, she thinks she hears footsteps, many footsteps, echoing on stone, approaching. She is not alone. She has never been alone. The chair holds her, the room watches, and somewhere beyond the seam, something waits. The story continues, and Elena, now etched in wood and memory, listens as the chant rises and the knock comes once more.
She fought too, you know?
A dull thud slices through the huge silence, its weight settling in the tiny room like a warning. It is not the sound of something falling, nor the innocent tap of a broom against the floor. It is heavier, deliberate, an urgent message muffled by thick walls and closer than it should be. Elena feels it before she fully hears it, a tremor in the bones, a ripple that disturbs the surface of everything calm and ordinary. Another thud follows, then another, each one closer together but still uneven, as if the force behind them is driven by desperation rather than rhythm. There is a pattern, but it is the pattern of panic, not patience. Each impact lands with the weight of a fist-meeting stone, a dull ache that vibrates through the air and burrows inward, brushing against the edge of fear. In that instant, Elena stops moving. She holds her breath as if the very act of inhaling might draw attention. Even the soft, disjointed whispers that had been circling the corners of the shop fall silent, caught in the act of listening. The barber, so precise, so measured, pauses mid-motion. His pen, poised above the weathered tag, hovers for a moment, a bead of ink gathering at its tip. He tilts his head, not with alarm, but with a kind of weary acknowledgement, as though the sound is an old acquaintance rather than an intruder. Thud, thud, thud. The floor vibrates slightly under Elena's chair, the shudder traveling up the legs and into her spine. On the shelves, the jars of hair, each one labeled and sealed, rattle with each impact, the thin glass pinging a warning. The single bulb suspended above the counter swings minutely, casting shadows that twist and stretch along the walls. One shadow, longer and more jagged than the others, seems to bristle with extra limbs, a grotesque distortion that flickers at the edge of sight. Behind the mirror, the surface ripples. Something presses against the glass from the other side, distorting Elena's reflection as if the boundary between worlds has thinned. The old crack in the mirror, which she had barely noticed before, quivers and races outward, sending fine white veins across the surface. The web of fractures gleams in the dim light, each thread a promise of something about to break through. Another impact. Thud. Closer, heavier. Elena's heart stutters, her pulse thundering in her ears. This is not the sound of the shop, nor of the city outside. It is raw, alive, and terribly human. Or at least, it once was. It is a plea, a warning, a truth clawing its way out from beneath layers of denial and the rituals that keep secrets buried. The rhythm quickens. Thud, thud, thud! The wall to Elena's right bulges outward, plaster swelling as if forced to contain a breath too large for the room. For just a second, the shape beneath the surface is almost visible, an outline, a suggestion of hands and shoulders pressing forward. The air grows heavy, thick with the scent of dust and old hair, a memory of lives clipped and collected. With a slow, deliberate motion, the barber sets his pen aside. He does not look at Elena. Instead, his gaze lingers on the names half-written, the tags scattered across his workbench. The drawer of braided hair closes with a soft, final click. When he speaks, his voice is quiet, unhurried, yet it carries the weight of ritual, the inevitability of something long practiced. Sometimes they forget they chose to stay, he says, as if reciting a lesson he has taught many times before. He slides the drawer shut, sealing away the locks of hair and the names they held. The room seems to contract around Elena, the air growing colder. Sometimes they want their names back. The lights flicker, dimming as if the bulb above them is struggling to hold on to its glow. A fine drizzle of dust falls from the ceiling, settling on the counter and the faded linoleum floor. The crack in the wall widens, the plaster flaking away to reveal the darkness beneath. And then, from the other side of the wall, a new sound emerges. A voice. It is hoarse, broken by strain and time, but unmistakably human. The words are muffled but clear, threaded with fear and pleading. Elena, don't let him finish. The name is a blade, slicing through the haze of fear and confusion. Elena's skin prickles, her mind racing. How does this voice know her name? What lies beyond the wall, pressing so hard against the boundary that even the mirror and plaster cannot contain it? She looks to the barber, searching his face for answers, but his eyes remain fixed on the closed drawer, his expression unchanged. The silence between them is dense, filled with all that remains unsaid. Around them, the shadows stretch and shift, as if eager to fill the space left by the dying light. The thudding resumes, this time with greater urgency. The wall trembles, the crack widening, dust and chips of plaster tumbling to the floor. Each blow carries with it a message of longing and loss, of something left unfinished and desperate to be remembered. Elena's thoughts tumble over one another. The stories she's heard, the whispers in the neighborhood about the barber and his collection, the names that disappear, the clients who leave quieter than they arrived, begin to coalesce into something sharper. She remembers the weight of the braid in the drawer, the careful way each tag was written, the ritual precision of it all. She wonders, what does it mean to choose to stay? What happens to those who want their names back? And what will the barber do if she refuses to let him finish? The voice on the other side of the wall grows louder, more frantic. "Elena, please, don't let him!" The bulb above them flickers once more, then steadies, casting the room in a sickly yellow light. The barber finally turns, his gaze meeting Elena's with a quiet intensity. For the first time, she sees something in his eyes, a flicker of doubt, or perhaps regret. Beyond the wall, the thudding stops. In its place, there is only the sound of breathing, shallow, uneven, as if whoever is trapped there is waiting for her decision. Elena's own breath catches in her throat. The room feels smaller, the walls closer. The shadows press in, eager for resolution. She can feel the weight of all the names written and unwritten, all the choices made and unmade, hanging in the air like a question that will not be denied. In that suspended moment, Elena understands. This is not just a haircut, not just a ritual. It is a reckoning. The act of finishing, of writing the name, closing the drawer, is a finality that cannot be undone. To stop it is to break a pattern, to free a memory, to risk letting something old and powerful loose into the world. She must choose between the comfort of forgetting and the terror of remembering, between ritual and rebellion, between silence and the truth that pounds, desperate and alive, beneath the surface. The room waits, the shadows wait, the voice beyond the wall waits, and Elena, heart pounding and breath held, stands on the threshold of her own decision, the echo of her name still trembling in the air. A web of cracks sprawls across the mirror, fragmenting the reflection into scattered shards. Each piece catches a sliver of her face, a cheekbone here, the curve of an eyebrow there, a single, unsteady eye floating amidst the splinters. She leans closer, searching for the continuity that might make her whole. But the lines refuse to resolve. They only fracture her further, splintering identity into something unrecognizable. Her gaze flickers, restless, tracing the zigzagging breaks as if they might piece together an answer, as if the broken glass could be coaxed to tell her who she is. She inhales slow and shallow. The question aches at the back of her mouth, heavy and insistent. Her lips part, dry and uncertain, but the sound that forms dies before it can escape. There is only the hush of her breath, the hush of her confusion, and the faint, mechanical hum that fills the sterile room. She tries again, forcing her tongue and lips to shape a truth that feels just out of reach. The words stumble. "My name is..." Silence swallows the rest. It is as though the very act of reaching for herself has caused her to dissolve further, the fragile scaffolding of memory crumbling to dust. She watches herself in the mirror, not whole but in pieces, and waits for something to coalesce, a flicker of recognition, a thread to follow out of the labyrinth. Nothing comes. The silence expands, thick and suffocating. A single strand of hair slips down her cheek, brushing her skin like the whisper of a memory. It falls, unnoticed at first, to the bright, indifferent floor. Another follows, then another, each drifting, soundless, from her scalp to settle in a small, scattered pool at her feet. It is only when she looks down, drawn by some peripheral sense of wrongness, that she sees them, the dark curls gathered like spilled ink, like shadows cast by something she cannot name. Her hands, trembling now, rise to her head. Her fingertips press into the thinness of her hair, shocked by how the roots yield beneath them. The texture is foreign, alien. The familiar resistance is gone, replaced by a sparse frailty she does not remember. Her breath catches, quick, sharp. She presses her palms to her temples, as if she might hold herself together by force of will alone. As if memory could be summoned by touch. But the memories do not come. No name rises to her lips. No sense of self blossoms behind her eyes. She is a vessel emptied of context, her own history erased, scrubbed clean by some unseen hand. The only constants are the cold tile beneath her feet, the unyielding glare of overhead lights, and the sterile air that chills her to the bone. Around her, the room offers no comfort. There are no photographs on the walls, no books stacked on shelves, no trinkets to hint at a past life. The bed is neatly made, untouched by the clutter of routine. The small dresser holds nothing but a folded gown and a brush with too few hairs caught in its bristles. She is surrounded by blankness, as featureless as a page yet to be written. With each new morning, she wakes to find that something else has unraveled. The first day, it was a favorite song, its melody now elusive, the lyrics slipping through her grasp like water. The next, a habit. The way she used to tie her shoes, suddenly forgotten, her fingers fumbling with the laces as if seeing them for the first time. Faces blur and fade. Voices become indistinct echoes. And now, today, it is her name. Vanished. Gone like vapor, leaving only the ache of its absence. She mouths sounds, experimenting with different letters, different syllables, hoping that one might fit, might feel familiar. But each is strange, a foreign tongue. She tries combinations, soft or sharp, long or clipped, but none of them settle into place. Each attempt is met with the same blankness, the same sense of being lost at sea, unmoored from any shore. She bends down, reaching for a strand of fallen hair. It is delicate, almost insubstantial, trembling in her grasp as though it might dissolve at any moment. She holds it up to the fractured mirror, watching the way it catches the light, the way it seems to shimmer with the possibility of meaning. But it slips from her fingers, drifts to the floor, and she is left empty-handed once again. The hum of the lights grows louder, a constant presence in the silence. She paces the room, searching for something, anything that might anchor her. Her eyes scan the blank walls, the impersonal furniture, the closed door that leads to a corridor she cannot quite remember. Each step is tentative, as though the ground might give way beneath her. She returns to the mirror, compelled by some instinct she does not understand. She studies the splintered image, the face she cannot name, the eyes that seem both familiar and strange. She wonders who she was, what she loved, what she feared. She wonders if she was kind, if she laughed easily, if someone somewhere remembers her. But the mirror offers no answers, only more questions, more cracks, more pieces to be gathered and examined. She feels herself drifting, as insubstantial as breath, as impossible to hold as the memory of a dream upon waking. Each day, more of her slips away. Habits, words, gestures, until she is little more than a shadow, a whisper, a ghost haunting the periphery of her own life. She presses her forehead against the cool glass, closing her eyes. For a moment, there is nothing but the thrum of her heart, the steady rhythm of breath in and out. She wills herself to remember, to reclaim, to become whole. But when she opens her eyes, the reflection is still fractured, the name still lost, the world still strange and unyielding. And so she stands, poised between forgetting and remembering, between presence and absence. She is a mystery to herself, a puzzle with too many missing pieces. The only certainty is the slow, steady unraveling, the knowledge that tomorrow something else will be gone. Still, she lingers by the mirror, searching the splinters for a sign, for anything that might remain. But all she finds are scattered pieces, drifting away, as she too slips quietly into the shadows.
Elara.
Are you alright?
She stands in the corridor, her heart hammering a deep, echoing rhythm in her chest, one that belongs to every woman here, yet none but her can feel. The air presses in, close, cold, and metallic, carrying the sterile tang of antiseptic and something older, something like regret. Her eyes dart from face to face, each woman equally familiar and alien, each bearing the unmistakable mark of her own gaze, her own history. There is no comfort in their resemblance, only the uncanny certainty that she is surrounded by all the lives she might have lived, by all the choices she never made. The clone, her clone, stands impossibly close, presence looming like the sharp edge of a memory. The scar above the left brow is a silent accusation, a reminder of the childhood accident she tried so hard to forget. That scar had always seemed like a tiny fissure in her reality, and now it blooms across another face, as if to say, "You cannot outrun yourself." Her question hangs in the air, more plea than inquiry. "Early for what?" The words echo, swallowed by the shifting corridor, as if the space itself is unwilling to let them go. "For your reckoning," comes the reply, as emotionless and inevitable as the turning of a clock. That voice, it's her own, stripped of doubt and layered with a finality that chills her to the bone. The clone gestures down the corridor, where the walls ripple and buckle, birthing doors from the seamless white. They groan into existence, heavy with rust and history, each etched with a single word that reverberates in her mind. Failure. Choice. Silence. Guilt. She cannot look away. Each door pulses with possibilities, each one a wound or a memory or a secret. She knows, with the clarity of someone standing at the edge of a precipice, that behind every door lies a version of herself she once abandoned. A future she walked away from, a decision that closed countless other doors. The corridor is alive with tension. The women, her reflections, her ghosts, watch without watching, each inhabiting the space with a quiet, relentless intensity. Their eyes do not meet hers, yet she feels the weight of their judgment, their silent question, "What did you choose? Who did you become?" She takes a step forward, and the floor feels unsteady, as if it, too, is waiting to see what she will do. The doors seem impossibly far and unbearably close, suspended in a liminal space that stretches and contracts with her every breath. The first door, failure, calls to her with a familiar ache. She remembers every misstep, every falter, every moment when she believed she wasn't enough. She sees, flickering in her mind's eye, the version of herself who never tried again, who let the weight of disappointment anchor her to the past. That woman stands beside the door, her posture slumped, but her eyes bright with unshed tears. She doesn't speak, but her presence is a silent rebuke, a reminder of the dreams that died quietly, without witness. The second door, choice, shimmers with uncertainty. She senses the branching paths of her life, the crossroads where she stood, heart pounding, uncertain which way to turn. The woman by this door looks resolute, her jaw set, eyes burning with conviction and regret in equal measure. This is the self who chose too quickly or not at all, who wonders, even now, what might have been if she had turned left instead of right, if she had said yes instead of no. Silence is next, the word etched so deeply into the rusted metal that it seems to bleed. The woman here is withdrawn, arms wrapped around her body, lips pressed tight. This is the self who swallowed her truth, who let fear and shame tie her tongue, who stood by as things went unsaid, as wounds festered beneath the surface. Her silence is a scream that echoes through the corridor, deafening in its intensity. And finally, guilt. The door is heavier than the rest, its hinges groaning under the weight of unspoken apologies and unresolved wrongs. The woman at this threshold is older, her eyes shadowed, her shoulders burdened by invisible chains. This is the self who carries every mistake, every hurt inflicted, every moment she failed those she loved. She does not look away, and her gaze is a mirror, unyielding, unflinching. She realizes with a start that these are not merely doors to the past. They are invitations. Each one offers passage, a chance to confront what she has hidden, to reckon with the selves she left behind. The corridor is not a prison, but a crucible, a place where she can choose at last to face herself. The clone waits, patient and impassive, as if she has seen this all before. Perhaps she has. Perhaps every version of herself has walked this corridor, has stood at these doors, has been asked to choose. She hesitates, fear and longing warring within her. What if she opens the door and finds nothing but emptiness? What if she cannot bear what waits on the other side? But the greater fear is that she will turn away, that she will leave this place unchanged, forever haunted by what she refused to face. Her footsteps echo as she moves forward, the sound swallowed by the vastness of the corridor. She reaches for the door marked Choice, her hand trembling. The metal is cold beneath her fingers, rough with age and memory. She closes her eyes, breathes in the sterile air, and turns the handle. The corridor holds its breath. Inside, she sees herself, not as she was, but as she could have been. Stronger, perhaps, or softer. A woman shaped by different decisions, by courage or cowardice or simple chance. She sees the consequences of roads not taken, the joys and sorrows that were never hers, the love that bloomed or withered in distant parallel lives. She steps back, the weight of all she might have been pressing down on her. The other doors beckon, each promising its own revelation, its own reckoning. She understands now. This place is not meant to punish her, but to remind her. She is the sum of every choice, every silence, every failure and regret. She is not just the last to arrive. She is the only one who can choose what comes next. The women in the corridor watch as she moves forward, their eyes shining with something like hope or forgiveness or simply recognition. The corridor hums with possibility, the tension breaking like a storm at sea. And for the first time, she feels the weight begin to lift. A whisper threads through the air, sinuous and certain. A presence so intimate it presses against the insides of her skull. Its words unfurl with the slowness of a secret. Your hair remembers what you forget. The syllables curl around her name, though it is never spoken aloud. And in that moment, the world narrows to the corridor, long, windowless, humming with shadows. She inhales, sharp and startled, as the first strand of her hair drifts past her cheek. It floats downward, not cut or tugged, but liberated by some invisible will. The air is still, yet the strand moves as if on a current of memory, and as it tumbles, its dull brown changes, flaring to a gold-lit red, pulsing with life, then flickering with images. A red bicycle emerges in the strand's glow, not as a picture, but as sensation. The cool metal beneath small hands, the tremor of training wheels on cracked pavement, and the rough warmth of her father's hand steady at her back. Then, in a dizzying lurch, the grip is gone, and she is flying, terrified, elated, free. The memory stings with the sharpness of wind and the thrill of sudden independence, and she realizes she had forgotten the ride itself, replaced by a memory of fear. Now the truth of it seeps into her, vibrant and raw. Another strand loosens, twirling down. Its light is dimmer, tinged with gray. A closet door appears, slightly ajar. Two eyes, her own, peer through the gap, fixed on her mother's hunched shoulders, her body shaking in the darkness. There is no sound, yet the silence is deafening, pressing against her bones, filling her with a sorrow she could never name. She had buried this, locked it behind years and layers, but her hair recalls every tremor, every unspoken word. The cascade continues. A birthday candle flickers into being, short and stubby, its wax running down too quickly. She is 6, cheeks round and expectant, the room aglow with anticipation. She squeezes her eyes shut and makes a wish. What did she wish for? The answer hovers just out of reach until the falling strand pulses and she remembers. She wished her parents would never fight again. The wish dissolves in the space between breaths, but the longing it left behind resurfaces now, as acute as the day she first felt it. With each memory, each strand, her scalp grows lighter. Cool air tickles the exposed skin, and a prickling panic rises in her chest. She lifts a trembling hand, searching her head, and finds it thinning rapidly. Locks peel away in ribbons, luminous and insubstantial, carrying with them a parade of recollections she never meant to lose. The memories tumble out, the sting of her first heartbreak, a betrayal buried so deep she almost convinced herself it never happened. The shape of a dream she never dared to voice. Faces, places, and feelings, some bitter, some sweet, all spiraling free. Then, from the periphery, movement stirs. Figures uncurl from the shadows, her clones, echoes of herself at every age and stage. They rise, their eyes luminous, watching as pieces of her unfurl and drift away. One by one, they reach out, reverent, gathering the glowing strands as they fall. It is a strange procession, both mournful and celebratory, as if these fragments are treasures instead of burdens. An older clone steps forward, lines etching wisdom into her face. She moves gently, catching a strand in midair, cradling it as though it were precious. She lifts it to her own head, and for a moment, her eyes glisten with understanding. "You left pieces of yourself behind," she says, her voice a low, steady hum. "We are not your ghosts. We are your keepers." The words resound in the corridor, more felt than heard, and a new recognition blooms inside her, a mingling of sorrow, gratitude, and awe. The corridor shifts, as if the architecture itself is responding. Rusted doors dissolve into gleaming mirrors, stretching endlessly in both directions. Each reflection reveals a different version of herself. Hair cropped short or tumbling long, wild curls and neat braids, streaks of dye and untouched roots. Every self holds a story, a memory preserved in the color, the texture, the style. Each reflection lifts her gaze with a silent invitation, their eyes bright with things remembered and things lost. In the stillness, a silence settles, not the silence of absence, but the fullness that comes after a storm. It is the hush between heartbeats, the gathering calm when all the fragments begin to recognize each other. For the first time, she feels something unfamiliar yet undeniable. It is not fear, though her heart races. It is not grief, though tears prick at her lashes. It is the weight and wonder of integration, a weaving together of every forgotten piece, every stray memory, every abandoned hope. She draws in a breath, feeling the cool air settle into her lungs, expanding with possibility. The mirrors shimmer, their surfaces undulating with the promise of wholeness. She steps forward, compelled by a force deeper than memory, and meets her own gaze in the glass. All her selves, all her keepers stand with her, their presence a silent chorus. In that fragile, luminous moment, she understands. What was lost can be reclaimed. The past need not be a prison. With each breath, with each step, she gathers herself up, memory by memory, strand by strand, until she stands not as a collection of fragments, but as a being made whole. And as she moves ever closer to her reflection, she is no longer haunted by what she has forgotten. Instead, she is held by all she remembers and by all that remembers her. She stands, breath held tight within her chest, the silence of the corridor pressing in around her, heavy and expectant. The wall before her, this strange, cold monument, draws her forward, its surface a history of vanished selves. Each portrait, each iteration, is a record of what she was forced to become and then forced to forget. The faces, drained of hope, stare back at her in mute accusation, or perhaps in desperate warning, eyes hollowed by the weight of all that was taken. They are her, yet they are not her. They are the evidence of a war waged inside her own mind, and of battles lost in the quietest of ways. Her fingertips, trembling, hover just above the glossy plastic of iteration 042. The words etched in brass beneath the image, "Compliance achieved," seem to pulse with a cold finality. She reads the labels, line by line, feeling a chill settle into her bones. Suppressed emotion, dream removal. Successful, resistance neutralized. Each phrase is a eulogy to a vanished self, a catalog of victories for those who sought to sculpt her into something obedient, something safe. The wall is not a memorial, she realizes, but a ledger, a reckoning of what was taken and what was left behind. But then something changes. The low hum within the wall intensifies, and a portrait flickers, its digital surface alive with static. Iteration 047. For a fragment of a heartbeat, the face shifts, the carefully constructed emptiness shattering. A smile blooms, quick, sharp, defiant. It is gone as soon as it appears, but it leaves a residue of hope, a spark that refuses to die. She steps back, startled, heart racing. The wall is not as immutable as it first seemed. Cracks are forming, not just in the images, but in the story she has been told about herself. A voice, warm and close, whispers behind her ear. The words curl into the air, gentle but unyielding. Some of us refused. She turns, and the world shifts on its axis. There, in the corridor's half-light, stands another version of herself, one who has broken through. This clone is not like the others. Her hair, ragged and uneven, clings to her scalp in stubborn tufts. Her eyes are alive, bright with a pain that is both ancient and immediate. Grief and rage burn in her gaze, fierce and unhidden. She is not compliant. She is not erased. The clone's hand trembles as she reaches for the wall, her touch tender and reverent. "We were never supposed to forget," she says. Her voice is raw, each word carrying the weight of memory returned. "They stripped it from us, one by one, but we're waking up." There is sorrow in her, but also something harder, something unbreakable. She turns her gaze to the wall, to the endless rows of faces, and for the first time, the wall seems less like a prison and more like a battlefield. Each headshot is a casualty, yes, but also a witness. "And so are you," the clone says, her voice steady now, stronger. The words are not just a statement, they are a call. In the far corner of the wall, a blank frame pulses, a silent invitation. It is empty, unmarked, waiting. No image yet, no brass label. She knows, without being told, that it is meant for her. The placeholder is a promise, or perhaps a threat, a future that is not yet written. She stands, suspended between what has been and what might be, the weight of possibility settling around her. The corridor goes still, as if the building itself is holding its breath. The other clones, rows upon rows, some only half-formed, others flickering at the edges, seem to wait, watching her. Their presence is not hostile, but neither is it gentle. They are the echoes of choices made and choices denied, the remnants of a self that was never allowed to fully exist. She feels their eyes on her, urging her not to turn away. The blank frame calls to her, silent and insistent. It is the shape of her unclaimed future, the void where her memory could be wiped clean, where she could become another line in the ledger, another victory for those who would erase her. But she steps back. She does not reach for the frame. She does not surrender to the emptiness. Instead, she stands her ground, her heart pounding with the knowledge that everything could still be changed. The clones, her silent witnesses, seem to lean forward, the air between them charged with anticipation. Their warning is clear. This is not just a monument to what has been lost. It is a signal, a beacon flashing in the dark. They are not her past, not merely. They are her warnings, fragments of a self that refused to vanish entirely, messages carved through time and pain. Each iteration, each erased memory, is a lesson, a signpost pointing toward freedom. She feels the truth settle in her bones. Awful, yes, but also liberating. She is not powerless. She is not alone. The wall, once a symbol of defeat, is now a map of resistance. She lets her gaze linger on the blank frame, on the possibility of erasure. But then she turns from it, choosing instead to face the clones, to face herself. Somewhere deep within her, something stirs. An ember of hope, of anger, of memory that cannot be excised. She understands, at last, that she has a choice. Not just to survive, but to remember, to resist, to reclaim what was stolen. As she stands in the quiet corridor, surrounded by the evidence of all that was lost and all that remains, she knows one thing with certainty. She still has time. The future is unwritten, The wall does not define her. The past is not a prison, but a warning. And she, at last, is awake. She stands at the threshold of memory and forgetting, feet rooted to cold stone, the world around her dissolving into nothing but the glass and the shape inside it. There is no corridor now, no walls, no ceiling, no gentle hum of distant life. There is only the mirror, and in its depths, the echo of a self she tried to leave behind. Her breath paints fleeting ghosts on the surface, ephemeral clouds dissolving into the pristine clarity of the mirror. Her reflection stares back at her with eyes wide and shimmering, lips parted as if caught between gasp and confession. She recognizes the terror in that face. It is the terror she's worn for years, stitched tight beneath polite smiles and careful words. But here, in this silent communion, there is no room for pretense. Then, the mirror betrays her trust. The reflection twitches, not in time with her own movements, but with a strange, broken rhythm, like a puppet with tangled strings. She lifts a trembling hand to her face. The image lags behind, then catches up with a snap. A fissure of dread runs through her. Something is wrong. Something is coming undone. And then, inexorably, the bleeding begins. It starts as a trickle, a single bead of shadow pooling at her reflection's hairline. The color is wrong, too dark, too thick, not quite red, but the hue of old secrets and deeper wounds. It slips down her reflection's forehead, slides along the curve of her cheek, painting a story in lines as deliberate as calligraphy. More follows. The blood does not drip, but flows, slow and relentless, as though time itself is grieving its passage. Her reflection's mouth falls open in a scream that makes no sound, but the agony is unmistakable. The jaw clenched, the eyes wide and raw, the teeth bared in a rictus of remembered pain. Every line of her face becomes a beacon of suffering, anguish made manifest, the kind that has no language but expression. Strands of hair, once whole and shining, begin to loosen and fall. They float downward, each one descending with the mournful grace of a feather, as if gravity is reluctant to let them go. The space between the glass and her skin grows thick with loss. With each falling lock, her reflection's form weakens. Skin turns ghostly pale, lips dry and splitting, shoulders droop under invisible burdens. The girl in the mirror is unraveling before her eyes, yet when she presses her real hands to her scalp, there is nothing. No blood, no pain, only the phantom ache of loss that throbs in time with each silent scream. She feels every drop as if it spills from her own veins. Every howl that never left her throat vibrates in her bones. Each lock of hair, each piece of self sacrificed for the comfort of others, for the illusion of safety, for the hope of acceptance. She feels them all. She remembers the days when she carved parts of herself away, made herself smaller, softer, more agreeable. She remembers the moments she silenced her rage, swallowed her grief, encased her fear in layers of practiced calm. She remembers every time she told herself, "It's fine, I'm fine, I have to be." She remembers surviving, but she also remembers what it cost. Now her reflection's lips move. The words are silent but unmistakable, mouthed over and over with desperate precision. "Don't leave me here!" Again and again the plea ripples through the glass. "Don't leave me here!" It reverberates in the hollows of her heart, in the empty spaces she tried to fill with noise and busyness and not thinking. Shapes gather at the edges of her vision, faint, flickering, almost familiar. They are versions of her, echoes she left behind at different crossroads. Some are silent, some weep, some look on with haunted resignation. One, with jagged hair and eyes that know too much, steps forward and extends a finger toward the mirror. When it touches the glass, there is no reflection, only absorption. A ripple that spreads like a pulse, tender and wounded. The bleeding girl in the mirror shudders. The delay vanishes. The distortion is gone. She looks back, clear and pleading, no longer a specter but a survivor, someone who endured, who screamed without being heard, who bled without anyone noticing. The connection between them is sudden and unyielding. For the first time, she sees not a warning, but a possibility. This is the piece she abandoned, the raw, unfiltered self she buried to remain functional, to keep moving through a world that demanded less and less of her truth. She sees now, with aching clarity, that this girl is not here to haunt her. She is here to return, to be reclaimed. A crack splits the mirror, running from the reflection's brow down through the center of her being. Along the fissure, a thin line of glistening red traces the wound. Something shifts in the air around her, a warmth she hasn't felt in years, soft and insistent, curling around her shoulders like a forgotten embrace. The voice comes, gentle and near, as if it has always been there, waiting for her to listen. If you face her, you can become whole. The words settle into her. If you turn away, you will become just another frame on the wall. She knows what that means. A life lived in fragments, a self forever divided, a face that stares from behind polished glass but never lives. Her gaze stays fixed on the mirror, on the blood, on the scream that never faded. She sees all the parts of herself she tried to exile. The anger, the sorrow, the wild hope, the child who wanted to be loved for exactly who she was. She sees their suffering, but also their resilience, their refusal to disappear. Her hand rises, slow and deliberate, reaching for the crack, for the bleeding, for the scream that is and always was her own. She feels the warmth at her fingertips, the trembling possibility of healing. As she touches the broken glass, she does not flinch from the pain, does not recoil from the truth. She reaches out, not to silence the scream, but to answer it, to gather up every abandoned piece and hold them close, to become, at last, someone who is not afraid of her own reflection. The mirror does not shatter. It does not reject her touch. Instead, it pulses with life, a heartbeat shared across the divide. And in that moment, she knows. Wholeness is not the absence of pain, but the willingness to carry every part of herself forward, even the bleeding ones, even the ones who never stopped screaming, especially them. The floor beneath her is alive with an old intelligence, one that has learned the weight of secrets, the taste of sacrifice, and the aching hunger of hope. It does not groan with age or strain, but with the careful, measured intention of something that has waited a very long time for this moment. Each step she takes is answered by a sound, not quite a creak, not quite a sigh. A language between her feet and the wood, a conversation she cannot yet understand. A knot of silence rises within her, tight and unyielding, as if all the words she cannot say have gathered in her chest, pressing against her lungs and ribs. It is a silence that demands attention, coiling inward, drawing her focus to the very core of who she is, or perhaps who she used to be. She stands at the threshold of what she cannot name, and the voice that rises from below is at once a comfort and a threat. Smooth as honey, yes, but soaked in something older, something that remembers the first stories, the first betrayals, the first bargains ever struck in darkness. You can still leave if you give up something else. It is not a question, it is not a plea. It is a certainty, a rule carved into the marrow of this place. The corridor is not just a passage, but a living entity, exhaling secrets, shaping itself to her fear and her longing. The floorboards ripple, bending inward as if drawing breath, and the seams between the tiles split open. Dust, ancient and patient, rises in tendrils, curling around her ankles, urging her to look down. She does. And as she gazes into the widening seams, she feels the ground beneath her feet shift from solid certainty to something much more fragile and much more profound. The floor does not fall away, it reveals. Panels peel back, not like broken things, but like petals opening to the sun, exposing a pit lined with velvet so dark it seems to swallow the light. Within that strange velvet cradle lie objects, hovering in shadow, radiating a soft, inner glow. A broken locket, its halves forever parted, but still clinging to one another by a thread of memory. A torn sketchbook, pages curled, edges frayed, each line a glimpse of a world she once imagined. A hospital wristband, plastic, faded, embossed with a name she barely recognizes as her own. A photograph, herself as a teenager, defiant and uncertain, the eyes burned out by some past pain. A pair of scissors, ordinary, unremarkable, yet heavy with the memory of something she once cut away and never reclaimed. She gasps, not just at the sight of these objects, but at the sharp, undeniable recognition that floods her. These are not things. They are anchors. Each one is a fragment of her story, a piece she lost, abandoned, or was forced to surrender. They are sacrifices she made to survive, to move on, to become someone else. Now, the corridor demands one more. A plaque rises from the edge of the pit, its metal surface alive with shifting engravings. Words flow and shimmer, adapting to her hesitation, her fear, her longing. Every freedom has its cost. Choose the thread you will sever. From the shadows, a figure emerges, one of the clones, but not the one driven by rage or bitterness. This one is calm, her skin aglow with a quiet serenity, her eyes deep with understanding. She kneels beside the pit, looking down at the glowing relics as if in silent prayer. "You can walk out of here," the clone says, her voice gentle. "But if you do, you'll forget one more truth, something close, something warm." Her hands, though steady, betray a tremor, as if she too has faced this choice, as if she too has lost and mourned. The pit responds to her indecision. The objects glow brighter, pulsing with the rhythm of her heartbeat. Each one calling to her, reminding her of what was, what might have been, and what could still be. A whisper drifts upward, curling around her like smoke, intimate and inescapable, the memory of your mother's voice. Your ability to trust someone new. The last time you felt wonder. Each possibility strikes her like a gust of cold wind, cutting through the layers she has built to protect herself. She could leave. She could wake up, forget, move on. She could sacrifice one more piece and slip back into the safety of oblivion, carrying only the weight she can bear and leaving the rest behind. But something inside her aches, aching not with pain, but with longing. A buried part of her, pressed beneath years of survival, repression, and self-denial, stirs. It is the part that wants to stay, to dig deeper, to confront what was lost, to reclaim what was stolen. It is the part that believes healing is possible, that wholeness is not just a memory, but a future she can still reach. The corridor falls silent, the air thick with anticipation. It waits for her, as if the world itself is holding its breath. She kneels beside the pit, her hand hovering above the glowing objects, her fingers splayed as if to take flight or to bless what has been lost. The warmth of the relics rises to meet her skin, each one humming with the promise of pain and possibility. And then, from the deepest well of her being, a question emerges. It is not the voice from below, nor the echo of the clones, nor the whisper of the corridor. It is her own voice, clear and unwavering, shaped by every choice, every loss, every hope. Is freedom worth less than memory? She understands now that this is not a riddle with a correct answer, but a crossroad. Whatever she chooses will shape her, define her, become the foundation of what she is to become. If she leaves, she will lose another thread, another tie to what makes her human. She will be lighter perhaps, but emptier. If she stays, she must face the relics of her past, confront the pain, and risk the uncertainty of what she might reclaim. The corridor does not judge. It waits, eternal and patient, offering neither comfort nor condemnation. The choice is hers, fully and irrevocably. She closes her eyes, feeling the weight and wonder of possibility. And in that silence, she realizes, freedom is not the absence of memory, but the courage to choose which memories to carry forward and which to let go. She opens her eyes, hand trembling but resolute, and reaches toward the pit, toward her future, whatever it may hold.
This thread holds the echoes of what was and what could be.
In the suffocating hush of the small bathroom, time seems to thicken, every heartbeat pounding in her ears like thunder rippling through a distant storm. She stands pinned by terror, her breath sharp and ragged, eyes glued to the impossible horror unfolding on the other side of the mirror. The reflection, her reflection but not, smiles with those jagged, impossible teeth, a smile too wide, too knowing, as if it has been waiting for this moment far longer than she's been alive. The words echo in the stale air. Let me finish. She tries to remember how she got here. Ordinary moments flicker through her mind. Washing her hands, brushing her hair, the familiar ritual of reaching for the faucet, glancing up, expecting only herself. But now, all those moments seem impossibly distant, as if they belong to someone else entirely. The world beyond the bathroom door is silent, unmoved, as if the entire universe is holding its breath. Her instinct screams at her to run, but her legs feel rooted to the cold tile floor. She watches, helpless, as the thing in the mirror leans closer, its eyes glinting with a predatory hunger. Its breath fogs the glass with each word, and the air grows colder, the light flickering overhead before exploding, shards scattering like frozen raindrops. Shadows crawl up the walls, and the only illumination comes from the mirror itself. A pale, sickly glow that seems to pulse in time with her racing heart. She forces herself to move, to reach for the door, but the not he. The air tastes of disinfectant and old metal. Each breath she draws feels thin, like it might flutter apart before reaching her lungs. The barber's hand, gloved and careful, lingers on her scalp, pressing the crimson-stained cloth with the practiced steadiness of someone who's done this before. Many times, perhaps. Her skin tingles and burns where the cloth touches, but it's a distant sensation, smothered beneath the heavier blanket of exhaustion that wraps her limbs and thoughts. The spinning in her head intensifies, a carousel of fractured images and sensations. She tries to anchor herself, to remember how she came here, but her mind is a foggy landscape with no landmarks. The mirror before her offers no answers. A stranger stares back, a woman stripped of her hair, her identity, even the small scars she has always run her fingers over when anxious. The woman in the glass is smooth, bare, and ghostly pale. Her eyes wide and rimmed with the shock of unknowing. The buzzing overhead, lights maybe, or some other machine, syncs with the throb in her skull. She tries to focus on the barber's movements, but they blur at the edges, as if he's moving too quickly for her to follow, or she's slipping out of step with time itself. His voice, when it comes, floats to her through thick water, distorted and remote. Almost done, he says, but the words have no comfort, only the clinical finality of routine. She reaches for the edge of the chair, hoping to steady herself, but her arm barely twitches. She stands frozen in the doorway, breath catching in her throat as the shadows writhe along the walls, casting grotesque patterns that seem to pulse with a life of their own. The air is thick with an acrid chemical tang, and the persistent whispering winds tighter, threading into her thoughts, turning every heartbeat into a drum of mounting dread. She blinks hard, as if she might dispel the vision by sheer will. But the room sharpens in focus, the cages, the hair, the sickly light, each detail more vivid and more impossible than the last. A row of cages lines the nearest shelf, each one meticulously labeled, each with a different lock. The hair within is more than just a collection of strands. It's a tapestry of human experience. She sees a thick braid, bright red, and tied with a child's pink ribbon, swirling beside a tangled nest streaked with silver and matted with something darker. Some locks float serenely, others thrash, as if protesting their confinement. The glass of the cages is smudged, fingerprints pressed hard against the inside, blurring the view but not the horror. The whispers grow louder, a cacophony of stolen voices. There's an edge of desperation to them, a pleading that gnaws at her resolve. Words overlap and fragment. He took it. I want it back. Before the mirror. Before the cut. And she feels each phrase like a jolt, as if they're meant for her alone. She clamps her hands over her ears, but it's futile. The voices seep inward, worming through her skin, crawling through her veins, pressing against the inside of her skull. Her knees tremble. The floor beneath is sticky, and as she shifts her weight, she feels something cold and slick winding around her ankle. She jerks back, heart hammering, but the sensation flees into the gloom. She can't tell if it was real or just another trick of the room. Panic rises in her chest, hot and suffocating. At the far end, the rusted cabinet looms. its doors ajar, yawning in invitation or warning. She's drawn forward, compelled by a force she can't name. Each step is an effort, her legs heavy, as if she's wading through molasses. The whispers part just enough for her to hear her own footsteps, a soft, squelching sound that makes her shudder. She reaches the cabinet. Its surface is pitted with age and neglect, the paint flaking in ugly patches. She hesitates, but the urge to look is overwhelming. She pulls the door open a fraction wider, peering inside. Behind the glass, faces stare back at her. They're suspended, half shadow, half reflection, frozen in the moment of their last scream. Eyes wide, mouths stretched, each expression contorted by a pain that feels both alien and intimately familiar. The glass fogs and clears, the faces flickering in and out of focus, a gallery of suffering trapped in eternal silence. A single whisper slices through the din, clearer than all the rest. It's her own voice, unmistakable, yet impossibly distant. It's not just hair, it's identity, memory, self. The words reverberate in her chest, and for a moment, she feels the full weight of their meaning, an ache deep in her bones, as if she's lost something she never realized was missing. The nearest cage rattles violently, snapping her attention back. Inside, a single strand of hair, dark and glossy, unmistakably familiar. Rashes against the glass, lashing out as if to escape. She sees a tiny tag dangling from the latch. Subject 42B, extraction complete, awaiting integration. There's a second line, hastily scrawled in black ink. Do not return to host. Her stomach twists. She reaches out, fingers trembling, tracing the tag through the glass. The hair within stills, pressed against the barrier, as if recognizing her touch. For a heartbeat, she feels a jolt of memory, a flash of laughter, a hand brushing through her hair, the weight and warmth of self-recognition. Then the sensation is gone, snatched away by the hungry whispers. She staggers back, mind reeling. The cages seem to multiply before her eyes, stretching into the shadows, each one containing a fragment of someone, a piece of who they were, or who they might have become. The room pulses with loss, with longing, with the echo of 1,000 stolen selves. She tries to recall how she got here, what brought her to this place of remnants and regret. The memory is slippery, elusive, drowned by the tide of voices. Bits and pieces surface, a mirror, a cut, a terrible choice, but they dissolve before she can grasp them. She's left with only the certainty that something vital has been taken, and the dreadful suspicion that she's not the only one. The whispers surge again, a wave of need and accusation. Return it! Give it back! Remember! They press in from every side, crowding her, suffocating her. She wants to scream, to run, to tear open every cage and set the contents free, but terror roots her to the spot. She is both prisoner and warden, complicit in her own undoing. In the flickering light, she sees her own reflection in the cabinet's glass. Her face is pale, eyes wide with fear and recognition. Behind her, the faces press closer, their mouths still open in silent screams. She can't look away. She sees herself multiplied, fractured, scattered among the shadows. Each version a little less whole, a little less real. The hair in the nearest cage floats gently now, curling upward as if reaching for her. She feels its pull, the magnetic tug of something lost and desperately needed. She wants to open the cage, to reclaim what was taken, but the warning on the tag burns in her mind. Do not return to host. What would happen if she defied it? Would she be restored or undone? A new whisper rises, softer than the rest, curling around her like a question. Who are you, without what was taken? Me, she doesn't know. The answer slips through her fingers, dissolving into the green-lit gloom. She turns away from the cabinet, pressing her back to the cold metal. The cages stretch before her, a labyrinth of memory and identity. The voices ebb and flow, and she realizes she's not alone. Every soul in this place is searching, reaching, yearning for what was lost. She closes her eyes, listening, not to the chaos, but to the faint, steady echo of her own voice. It's still there, buried deep, waiting to be found. As she opens her eyes, she knows the only way out is forward, through the maze of cages, through the tangle of stolen selves, toward the thread of memory that might, just might, lead her home. The cold sting of glass bites into her palm as she clutches the broken shard, the edge slick with newly drawn blood. Breath ragged, she carves a path through the thick leather straps that have bound her for how long? It's impossible to say. Time here is viscous, stretching and twisting with every flicker of the fluorescent light above her. The final strap splits with a nauseating snap and she stumbles free, hands shaking and slick. Blood purls at her fingertips, but the pain is distant, muffled by the thunder of her pulse and the single thought beating steadily through her head. Get out. Get out. Get out! She lurches to her feet, the room spinning, shadows leering from every corner. She drags in a breath that tastes of antiseptic and old fear, and then she runs. Down a corridor so narrow it seems to press against her ribs, her bare feet slapping the icy concrete. The light flickers overhead, and in its stuttering glow, she glimpses the grooming room. Mirrors warped and fogged, cages hung along the walls. Inside those cages, hair floats like dead jellyfish, drifting on currents of unseen air. Whispers curl up from within, too faint to parse, but their intent chills her skin. She doesn't look back. She can't. She barrels forward, clutching the bloodied shard, the world collapsing to a tunnel vision of escape. A door looms ahead, warped wood and tarnished brass, and she flings it open with desperate force. Inside, the chair waits for her. Empty. The leather straps twitch as if animated by memory, curling like dead snakes disturbed from sleep. The air is thick with the scent of something metallic, her blood, or perhaps something older. She recoils, the shard trembling in her hand, her heart hammering against her ribs. No. The word escapes her lips, barely a breath, but it echoes in the empty room. The chair's shadow stretches toward her, impossibly long. She spins, panic clawing at her throat, and bolts through another doorway, deeper into the building's bowels. The next corridor is longer, darker, the walls pulsing with indistinct shapes. Her feet pound up a stairwell, 2 steps at a time, each inhalation burning her chest. The echo of her own frantic movement seems to chase her, urging her onward. At the top, a steel door. She crashes through it, heart in her mouth, and the chair is there again. This time, she's not alone. The chair is occupied. She sees herself strapped down as before, but this other her is smiling, a calm, knowing smile that doesn't reach the eyes. The reflection's gaze is sharp, unblinking, as if it can see straight through her frantic exterior and into the marrow of her fear. "You're late," the seated version says, voice steady, almost kind. "We've already begun." A scream rips from her throat, raw and primal. The glass in her palm shatters, shards slicing deeper into flesh. Blood spatters across the tile, a bright, vivid contrast to the sterile white of the room. She reels away, chest heaving, vision blurring with panic. She tries another door, then another, stumbling through a labyrinth of identical corridors and rooms. Each time she finds herself back where she started. The same flickering light overhead, the same sterile air, the same chair. Sometimes empty, sometimes occupied by her own smiling reflection. Every path loops back, every attempt at escape weaving her tighter into the building's suffocating maze. Finally, breathless and spent, she collapses against the wall. Sweat and blood mingle on her skin, her thoughts a tangle of dread and disbelief. She forces herself to look, really look, at the figure in the chair. Her own face stares back, calm as ever, eyes wide and impossibly deep. "You can't run from it," the reflection says, voice gentle, almost pitying. "You're not leaving until I'm in." The words settle on her chest like lead. She understands, in some wordless, primal way, that the building is more than walls and doors. It's a mirror, a labyrinth built from her own mind. Every hallway a loop of memory and fear. Every door she opens only leads her back to herself, the escape she craves always just out of reach. As the last syllable fades, an ominous shift stirs the air. One by one, the doors around the chamber slam shut, the sound echoing like gunshots. Locks slide into place with a finality that is absolute. The room grows colder, the light flickers more violently, and the silence that follows is thick enough to drown in. She stands alone now, no longer running, the bloodied shard useless in her hand. The reflection watches her from the chair, patient and implacable, as if it has all the time in the world. Somewhere deep inside, she realizes the truth. There is no escape from the parts of herself she has tried to forget. The building, the chair, the endless corridors. They are all pieces of her, fragments of memory and pain that refuse to be left behind. The only way out is through, but the path is one she has always feared to walk. The quiet in the room is broken only by her breathing, harsh and uneven. The reflection tilts its head, eyes shining with a strange compassion. "When you're ready," it says softly, "we can begin again." And in that moment, she feels the weight of her own gaze, the inevitability of confrontation. She is both prisoner and warden, captive and captor. And until she faces what sits waiting in the chair, there will be no escape, only the endless cycle, the maze folding in on itself, carrying her always back to the place she cannot leave. The blood on her hand begins to dry, the sting sharpening her senses. She looks at the shard, then at her own reflection, and for the first time, she does not turn away. The chair remains, silent and patient, a throne for the truth she has tried so long to outrun. The room breathes with her, anticipation humming in the air. The doors are locked, but inside these walls, the real journey is just beginning.
The deal. I remember pieces, dreams, screams. Woke up, this life didn't fit. This face. I can't name it. Don't make my mistake!
She wasn't supposed to speak.
I took the deal, but I remembered anyway. They wipe your memory, but not your soul.
Of sexist. You have no idea what you're giving up.
You think forgetting pain is peace. It's not.
Darkness is a canvas where memory paints its most vivid shapes. In the room that once pulsed with the brittle hum of electricity, she stands, breath shallow, heart pounding, the taste of old fear sharp on her tongue. Before her, the mirror has always been a silent judge, its surface cold and impartial, reflecting what she allows it to see. Tonight, she wears her old hair like a mask, a shroud of self she once cast aside, now draped again upon her head. She smiles, but the smile is brittle, trembling at the edges, as if the act itself might split her in two. "I want to remember," she whispers. Her voice is a secret, meant for no one but the glass and the shadows. Then the world inhales sharply, and the lights die, plunging everything into a void deeper than simple darkness. The hum, the faint sizzle of distant wires, gone. Whispers are snuffed out, as if the room itself has lost the courage to speak. For a moment, existence is nothing but the sound of her own heartbeat, thundering in her ears like a warning. A click breaks the silence. Not a switch, not a relighting of the world, but a new beginning. A rebirth of sight, sickly and wrong. From beneath the floorboards, something pulses, green and unnatural, casting the room in an unearthly gloom. It shivers up her spine, this light, this sense of being watched by the bones of the house itself. The chair where she sat is empty now. She is standing, but she does not remember rising. The mirror, her only companion, is gone. Suddenly, she is alone. So she believes. But the air is heavy, thick with the presence of unseen things. The hairs on her neck rise just before icy fingers, wet as morning dew and twice as chilling, graze her skin. She spins, breath caught in her chest, but there is only emptiness behind her. No one stands in the gloom, only the broken woman in the corner, her form barely more than a silhouette curled into herself, breathing shallowly, sending up motes of dust with each ragged exhalation. Panic surges. The door, her escape, has vanished. Even the man, was there a man? Has dissolved into the darkness, leaving behind only a memory that refuses to settle into shape. Then, impossibly, a new mirror blossoms from the wall. It doesn't appear so much as it unfurls, rippling across the plaster like frost crawling over a window pane. She watches, transfixed, as her reflection returns. But this time, something is wrong. The woman in the mirror weeps, Tears carve black rivulets through flawless makeup, pooling beneath eyes stretched wide with terror. Perfect hair remains untouched, but within those glassy eyes is a storm, a silent scream, a desperate plea for freedom. Her reflection pounds against the inside of the glass, fists red from the effort, as if the mirror itself is a prison. "You said you wanted to remember," a voice intones. It does not echo from the mirror. It blooms inside her mind, resonant and cruel, the words vibrating against the walls of her skull. She stumbles, clutching her head as the memories come. Flashes, the sting of needles, the cold embrace of the chair. The whine of a blade, its edge hungry for more than hair, slicing away pieces of her soul. Images shatter across her consciousness, scenes she cannot place, faces she should know. A childhood rewritten in the ink of lies and silences. A lover's touch erased by a hand she cannot see. A scream, raw and endless, that has lodged itself in her lungs, unvoiced but ever present. Her own name, once spoken with tenderness, now ripped away, leaving only emptiness in its wake. She collapses, knees striking the cold floor, as the truth sears its way back into her mind. The pain is tremendous, a raw, cleansing fire that burns away the layers of forgetting. The mirror fractures, a spiderweb of cracks blossoming across its surface. From within, her reflection reaches out, a hand slick with blood, trembling but determined. It presses against the glass, not to harm, but to join. To heal what was broken, to make her whole. "I'm you," it whispers, unedited. She does not flinch, no longer afraid, no longer running from the shadow of herself. She extends her own hand, fingers steady, and clasps the hand that is hers in every way but one. The glass gives way, disintegrating into a swirl of ash that floats on the stagnant air, settling on her skin like the first snow of winter. Silence reigns. But it is a different silence now, not one of absence, but of completion. In the blackness, a new voice rises. Her voice, stronger, steadier, forged by pain and memory and an acceptance of the unvarnished truth. "Now I remember, and now I'm staying." She rises, whole for the first time in years, the fragments of her past meshing together into something solid. The room is still dark, but she no longer fears what it hides. The world outside waits, unchanged and indifferent. But inside her, the tides have shifted. The illusions have fallen away, revealing the shape of her true self, scarred and glorious. She is the woman who survived the forgetting, who endured the blade and the lies, who reclaimed her stolen name from the mouth of oblivion. She is her own witness, her own redeemer. The shadow in the corner stirs, but she pays it no mind. She is no longer haunted, no longer prey to the ghosts of her own making. With each breath, she asserts her presence. With each memory, she reclaims her power. The darkness is not an end, but a beginning, a place where the past is acknowledged, the pain honored, and the future written anew. She walks forward, unafraid, carrying the weight of her story not as a burden, but as a beacon. In this place, she is not a reflection, not a hollow shell. She is the sum of all she has endured, unedited and unbroken. And as she steps into the unknown, her voice, her true voice, rings out, steady and unafraid. A promise to herself that she will never again be silenced, never again be erased. She remembers, she remains, and that is enough. Elena's breath catches as the hand lingers, ice cold and impossibly gentle, against her cheek. The darkness presses in, thicker now, as if the walls themselves are leaning closer, eager to listen. Her mind scrambles for sense, for memory, for anything that might explain the nightmare she's found herself in. She tries to steady her breathing, counting silently, 1, 2, 3, but each inhale is cut short by the phantom of that voice, curling around her like smoke. She wants to scream, but finds her voice locked behind her teeth. Instead, she forces herself to move, to slide sideways along the damp wall, hands trembling, searching for an edge, a door, any escape. The silence throbs in her ears, broken only by her frantic heartbeat and the creature's slow, deliberate breaths. It's still there. She can feel it, the weight of its attention, the hunger in the air, A shuffling sound, too soft to be footsteps, too deliberate to be anything else, follows her. Elena squeezes her eyes shut, but the darkness is the same. Whether her eyes are open or closed, the memory of what she saw in that flicker of red light claws at her mind. The figure, tall and distorted, with her own hair matted over its eyeless face. The smile, wide and knowing. "I've been wearing you," it had said. She doesn't know what that means, not really, but the thought makes her skin crawl. She bites down on fear and forces herself to speak, her voice trembling, barely more than a whisper. "What do you want?" The creature's breath quickens, a low, rattling sound vibrating in the darkness. "To be seen, to be free." You are so easy to slip inside, Elena, so easy to wear. She stumbles, catching herself against a jagged edge in the stone. Pain flares in her palm, sharp and bright, grounding her. "You're not me," she spits, anger rising now, desperate and wild. "You're not—" "But I am," the thing interrupts, its voice curling around her name like a caress. "Your fear, your secrets, the parts you try to bury. I am the darkness you carry, the face you hide from yourself." A sudden memory flashes, the night spent awake, staring at the ceiling, unable to escape the weight of her own regrets. The way she'd avoid mirrors, afraid of what she might see looking back. Had it been waiting for her all along? She feels the creature shift closer, its presence a cold front against her skin. The wall at her back is slick with moisture, and she realizes she's trapped. No doors, no windows, just endless black. Panic claws at her throat, threatening to choke her. But then, a thought. If this thing truly is part of her, if it's been wearing her, maybe she can fight it from within. Elena straightens, forcing herself to breathe slow and deep, matching the creature's rhythm. She focuses on the pain in her hand, the solidity of her body, the stubborn beat of her heart. "You don't belong here," she says, voice steadier now. "Whatever you are, you're not in control, not anymore." The darkness pulses, as if the room itself recoils. The creature's smile fades, replaced by a snarl, its breath sour and heavy. "You think you can cast me out?" it hisses. "I am the shadow that clings to you. I am the truth beneath your skin." But Elena refuses to look away, even though she can see nothing. She squeezes her injured hand, letting the pain anchor her, and pushes back against the wall, feeling for any weakness, any opening. She imagines light, bright, blinding, burning away every shadow. She clings to every memory of warmth, of laughter, of hope. She remembers who she is beneath the fear. The creature screams, a sound of glass shattering, of bones grinding, of old wounds torn open. The red light flickers overhead, sputtering weakly, and in that brief pulse she sees it again. The figure writhing, its form unraveling, hair falling away from its face. For a heartbeat, she sees her own eyes staring back, wide with terror. "No," Elena whispers. "You are not me. Not anymore." With a surge of defiance, she steps forward, out of the corner, away from the wall. The creature recoils, shrinking into the shadows, its form dissolving at the edges. The air grows colder, the darkness thicker, but she presses on, refusing to give in. "Why do you fight?" the voice pleads, thinner now, less certain. "We could be whole. We could be safe." Elena shakes her head, even though she knows it can't see. "Safe isn't living. Safe isn't free. I'm done hiding." She feels something shift, inside her, around her. The weight of years of fear, of secrets, of shame, loosening. The red light flares one last time, bright enough to sear the darkness, and the creature screams, its form unraveling, dissolving into nothing. Suddenly, Elena is alone. The room is still dark, the air still heavy, but the suffocating presence is gone. Her breath comes easier now, her heart slowing. She stumbles forward, hands outstretched, and finds a door, hidden before, but now unlocked, swinging open at her touch. She steps into the corridor beyond, blinking as harsh white light floods her vision. The world feels raw, new, full of possibility. She glances back once, at the darkness behind her, and feels no fear. She knows the shadow will always be there, lurking at the edges. but it no longer owns her. Elena walks forward, each step lighter than the last, ready to face whatever comes next. The darkness cannot wear her anymore. She has found her own face, her own voice, and in the light, she is free.
Amira. Joy. Helena. Maris. Elena. Sit. I am not yours.
To be whole, you must reclaim or refuse. Her knees buckle. The floor doesn't catch her. It accepts her. Soft. Fragmentation. This is the cost of refusal.
No. You broke the cycle.
Elena lunges, her body moving before thought can catch it. She grabs the bone shears from the nearest faceless figure.
Not metaphorically. It actually screams. A piercing, human sound, torn from the stone itself.
Never again.
Never again!
We all took.
like souls finally walking home. A single frame remains when the
Would you like to close the story with Elena building something new? Or others finding the
The wind rustles the long grasses. I know who I am.
The air in the room shifts, warm, still, clean. And for the first
Elena's heart pounds as the bus rattles down the road, green signs blurring past her window. The words echo in her mind. There's another shop in the next town. She turns, expecting to see the girl beside her, but the seat is empty. No trace of her presence remains. Only a single silver hair glimmers in the sunlight, a silent reminder that some mysteries linger long after the passenger has vanished. Elena sits quietly in the back seat, the hum of the engine filling the silence. The driver's question lingers in the air, his gaze steady in the rearview mirror. She hesitates, memories flickering behind her eyes, shadows of endless cycles, a chair that never moves, strands of hair that never quite fall the same way, and the ever-present thing in the mirror. Words gather at her lips, but she only nods, the truth too heavy to share. She watches as memories flicker by, her reflection merging with the faded storefronts outside. Shadows stretch across painted doors, and the echo of laughter from years ago lingers in the air. Elena's breath fogs the glass as she traces the outline of what was, the ache of nostalgia settling quietly in her chest. The bus carries her onward, but part of her remains with the vanished barbershop, holding close the fragments of a gentler past. The question hangs in the air as the car idles at the edge of the forgotten lot. Sunlight glances off the windshield, illuminating dust motes that swirl with each faint breath. Elena's eyes linger on the empty space beyond the glass, her expression unreadable. The silence between driver and passenger feels heavy, as if weighed down by memories that refuse to settle. Somewhere in the distance, a bird calls, but neither of them moves, suspended in the moment. With her eyes closed, she lets the gentle hum of the bus lull her forward, carrying her away from the familiar streets and faces that once defined her world. As each mile passes, the town fades behind her, its memory dissolving into the blur of passing scenery. Yet, within her, a new resolve takes root. Though the town may forget her, she embraces her memories, determined never to let them slip away again. The air seems to thicken with the weight of the words. Elena's heart pounds in her chest as she tries to process what she's hearing. The girl's voice is gentle, yet carries an unmistakable certainty, as though she's seen countless others falter where Elena succeeded. In that moment, Elena senses a shift, an unspoken acknowledgement of her strength, and a hint that something significant awaits her on the other side of her courage. Elena moves with quiet determination, her footsteps almost silent against the worn carpet. The hum of conversation and the clatter of cups fade into the background, as if the rest of the world has slipped away. At the back of the carriage, the girl waits, her presence oddly magnetic. Her features are soft, innocent even, but her gaze is unsettling, ancient wisdom lurking behind youthful eyes. That smile she offers is unsettling, stretching just beyond the edges of comfort. They're everywhere, you know, hiding in plain sight, slipping between moments when no one's looking. The chairs, the mirrors, they remember us, even when we forget them. Sometimes, if you're quiet, you can feel them watching, waiting. They're patient. They don't need to rush. Sooner or later, everyone sees what's really there. The question isn't if you're one of them. The question is, when will you notice you already are? Elena's heart pounds as the bus rattles down the road, green signs blurring past her window. The words echo in her mind. There's another shop in the next town. She turns, expecting to see the girl beside her, but the seat is empty. No trace of her presence remains. Only a single silver hair glimmers in the sunlight, a silent reminder that some mysteries linger long after the passenger has vanished. Elena's breath catches as she studies the lines of her open palm, illuminated by a sliver of light. The weight of possibility presses against her chest, both familiar and new. Shadows dance across her skin, tracing the silent story of what has been and what may come. In this quiet moment, anticipation hums in her veins. She senses the turning of a page, the gentle stirring of hope, and the electric promise of a path unfolding before her. The card feels cold in Elena's hand, the gold letters shimmering with each jolt of the bus. She traces the embossed scissors, heart pounding in her chest. Maris Dane. The name echoes in her mind, dredging up memories she'd tried to bury. The cages, the neat rows of tags, the braid, impossibly fragile, swinging from its hook. Now, with the card pressed into her palm, Elena wonders who left it and why the chair is waiting again. As
And
the
something
bus
else,
pushes onward,
too.
swallowed by the
Invitation.
dense fog,
The screen
the
holds her
landscape
stare
dissolves
for
into
just a
shadows
breath
and
too long.
suggestion.
Then,
Each
cut
passing
to
moment
black.
feels suspended.
One final beat.
The usual
and then,
clatter fading
faint,
beneath
like
a
it's
heavy,
being
muted
whispered through
silence.
shears. Who's
Outside,
next? End.
familiar shapes lose their definition, shifting into ghostly outlines at the edge of vision. Inside, passengers hold their breath, uncertain of what lies ahead. The journey becomes less about the road and more about the quiet anticipation, as if time itself holds its breath. Inside the quiet bus, rows of passengers remain lost in their own worlds, indifferent to the thickening fog outside. But at the very last window, something delicate persists, a reflection untouched by reality. Elena's image hovers in the glass, separated from her physical form and her seat. In the misty pane, her hair cascades down her shoulders, long and familiar, as if time has slipped backwards, offering her a fleeting moment of return. Glossy, black hair brushes her collarbones, flowing like water, a vision so vivid it feels real. And yet, beneath the shimmer of memory, her head remains shaved, smooth, unadorned, unmistakably present. The contradiction does not disturb the calm surface of her reflection. It simply exists. Two truths, one imagined and one lived, occupy the same space, side by side. Memory and reality intertwine, each as tangible as the other, quietly shaping her sense of self. In a moment that breaks the ordinary flow of time, her eyes move, not toward the familiar world outside, but straight ahead, locking with yours. The air thickens as her gaze acknowledges your presence, silent and unblinking. There's no pretense, no attempt to soften the moment. Only an undeniable awareness passes between you, as if she's always known you were there, watching, waiting, part of her story in a way you never expected. A moment hangs in the air, charged with anticipation. The screen, unblinking, seems to peer back, holding secrets just beyond reach. Time stretches, suspended on the edge of something unnamed. Then, in a sudden hush, darkness swallows everything. A silence so deep it almost echoes. In that void, A voice emerges, barely a whisper, inviting, daring, haunting. Who's next? The question lingers, unresolved, drawing you in, promising that the story is far from over.